Come on in, Russ.
Oh,
you like that? You like that? You like that? You like that? You like that?
Ooh, he gives himself 4 Kirk Cousins. Rating the position group improvement. You can see this beautiful graphic the Maestro's put up here for you. We're going to go room by room. People talk about these Detroit Lions, kind of compare and contrast what they were like last year as to oppose what they are now with all of the offseason additions and subtractions. A lot of people think the Lions got better as an addition by subtraction, just getting rid of some of this other talent left a void that you backfilling it wasn't going to be that hard to upgrade some of the talent, especially in the secondary. They've really come a long way. I can't wait to rate these corners, Russ, at the end. But we're going to start with the quarterback. So first of all, let's say hello to everyone. Welcome, Donkey Kong in the chat. Thank you so much. Our good friend Dwayne, Steve, our favorite Packer fan of everyone. How's everyone? Haven't seen anyone in a good minute. Go Pack Go. 2024 division winners this year. All right. Hey, turn that Madden game off, Steve.
You like that?
Everyone knows that this is the Lions division this year, but appreciate the comment and glad you are with us. So we're going to start with this quarterback room, right, Russ?
yeah. And you know what? And the thing is you asked me, you're like, let's do this. Rate these guys from 1 to 10, right? And like
1 to 10. Well, that's a standard scale.
But our scale goes to 11.
Because we're musicians, yeah.
Because we're musicians. And we can't just take that energy at 10. Ours goes to 11. And so this is a scale, and this is for you guys out there too. You guys can follow it too. Is 1 to 11, and we're gonna go through what? Like, you're taking the lead right here, but our scales go to 11.
That's right. It's the Spinal Tap reference from hell. Sure, you could just make 10 louder, but these goes to 11. So because we're a couple of musicians, our scale goes to 11. So put it in the chat. Let us know what you think. We're going to start with this quarterback group. We decided, though, that we were only going to grade the top 2, not the third. Not because Nate Sudfeld sucks so bad that he brought the curve down, because he's good for what he's good for. He's a good third-string quarterback on this team, but we're only going to focus on what we think the Lions are going to go into the regular season on the 53-man roster. We both believe they're only going to carry 2 quarterbacks, and that will be Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker. So that's what we are rating first. So on a scale from 1 to 11, rate Goff and Hooker. We average those 2 together, and we get a total grade for the room. And when we start here on quarterbacks, I have to say that you and I are going to be at odds here because you're going to grade Hooker higher than me. I just know it.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give your grade and then ask me what my grade is going to be before telling them what my grade is going to be before I come out.
On a scale from 1 to 11, let's start with the first string, Jared Goff. He finished in top 5 last year in almost every meaningful category in quarterback rating. He was the most predominant cornerback in the fourth quarter in the red zone last year. So he out of 11, I'm giving Jared Goff a 9. If he was a little more mobile, if I was a little more accurate, he'd be an 11, no doubt. So then Hendon Hooker, the wild card. I know he's got a lot of upside, right? Our scale is 11. He's a rookie who's never taken an NFL snap. Therefore, immediately his score is cut in half. Because of his upside, though, I'm going to give him 1 extra point. So from a 5.5, he gets a 6.5 as a backup quarterback in the NFL. And I'm being generous because backup quarterback is so important in this league, and we just don't know what this kid could be. So 6.5 and a 9 for me for the quarterback room.
Okay, right on. Okay, so for Jared Goff, I mean, and I love this scale that goes all the way up to 11 because it makes me feel very, very comfortable in giving Jared Goff a 9 rating because it's, it was right there. He played as solid as you can play. He's not an extra player. He's not going to run out and, make plays with his legs or everything, but everything that he was asked to do, he did. And I think that he was in 2023 last year, I think he played at a 9. And I think in 2024 that he will continue that trend and he'll be a 9. And as far as Hendon Hooker goes, last year, I couldn't rate him any more than a 5, because he's really just recovering from an ACL injury. He took very, very limited snaps and doing everything. But I think in the projection for this year, I think I could bump at least 2 on there because of the backup quarterback thing that you said. I think he's going to take all the second team snaps and all the third team snaps all the way through preseason, and they're going to just bombard him, and they're going to teach him the offense. He's going to be the camp darling for the entire training camp, and he's going to be a viable backup. And I will give him a 7 right there. And Sudfield, he'll go out there and teach the third string some stuff.
Well, we're not grading Sudfeld, but your 7 on Hooker and my 6.5. So we can just say that room gets an 8. We'll take your score and average that 9 and that 7, and so we're giving the quarterback room an 8.
Okay.
If we had a seasoned backup, if we had a Teddy Bridgewater, most certainly I would add 1 point to that, and we'd have a solid 9, maybe 9.5 quarterback room with
experience. Can I ask you a question? Let me ask you a question with that. Like, just going from last year to this year. So last year we actually had really, really good depth by what you're saying right there. So you would say that we actually took a step backwards in depth by losing Bridgewater and promoting Hendon Hooker.
Maybe you could say that, except that Jared Goff last year would have gotten a lower rating. But since the way that Jared Goff played, especially in the playoffs, he moved up a couple of points in my book. So that would offset that. But yes, to answer your question. Awesome.
Okay.
So we got some comments here about the quarterback. We got Jeff Allen says, "Go Lions" from Windsor. Huddle Sports Network. Happy Memorial Day to all of you at the Huddle Sports Network. Very, very proud and happy to be a part of the Huddle Sports Network now over on Roku. Check out the Huddle Sports Network channel on Roku. We are now official partners with them. I love it. Elise Memes. Hi, dudes. God bless America and our veterans. Go Lions. Oh, if the world had more like you, Elise. Matt Henry says, "Good evening, fellas." Steve likes Goff as a 6 and Hooker as a 7. Bosch says a combined 11. Or no, that's just for Goff. I think he put that up when we were doing Goff. So he's giving Goff an 11. Double thumbs up from Scott Harrison. Now, yeah, here it is. Steve goes Goff 7, Hooker 6. Dwayne says a 9 for Goff. Donkey being rough. He's always such a tough critic. QBs combined for 10. And Dwayne says, not sure about Hooker yet. Have to see what he does in preseason. But that's why we have to make a prediction, Dwayne. So we can hang you with it or praise you for it at the end. Go ahead, Russ.
I think that the 10, when he says combined, he just says that the quarterback room overall is a 10 out of 11. I think that's what he's saying right there. I don't think that he's saying 5 and 5. I think that he's saying the room. Right. Room overall. And I get that right there. And by the way, Steve is a Packer fan. If you didn't see the Go Pack Go, that's why he's going to give Jared Goff a 6.
And that's why he's going to make obscure wrestling references. I think Russell wants to be another Bubba Ray Dudley with them chains around his neck. Can you explain Bubba Ray Dudley to us?
He was one of the Dudley boys, one of the the greatest tag team of all time. They won 24 world titles.
Forget it. Okay, never mind. Dave Eastman says a 9 for Goff and a 5 for Hooker. That's fair, right? I mean, with Hooker's a solid 5, and then if you factor in his upside too, I mean, if you're already factoring in his upside as a 5,
yeah, these are projections. These are projections. That's why I put him at a 7. I mean, I think he'll be
Lions super fan. Lamar Horton's Lions superfan in the house. Glad to have you here as well. Tim Flynn says, so who's screaming for Hooker to QB1? I don't think anyone anymore after that contract, Tim.
0 people on this
Once
show.
that contract got signed, that quelled all of that.
It's my quarterback.
All right. So
we're realistic on the show. By the way, Mike and myself, but we are very, very, very adamant about this. Jared Goff is a starting level quarterback, and Hendon Hooker is a dart throw. Okay, guys? Like, Jared Goff runs the Goff-fence, and he's the man. So there is no there's no QB controversy.
We are going through position by position, room by room on the Lions 2024 roster. I use a site called Our Lads. We're rating this roster improvement on a scale from 1 to 11. So put it in the chat. Let us know what you think about your grades and what you think about our grades. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook if you're not already doing so. It's Lions Villain Squad. And we're trying to pump up this anemic YouTube channel that we got. If you could please go over there and at Villain Squad on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. That would be awesome. So running back room now, Russ. Your favorite room? Well, one of your favorite room outside the offensive line. It is the running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. The site I use, Our Lads, has David Montgomery as RB1 and Jahmyr Gibbs as RB2. And I think that's fair, at least to start the season. That's what's going to happen. And then Jahmyr Gibbs 2. And then this site actually has Sion Vaki vaulting past Craig Reynolds into the RB3.
Okay.
We agreed that we are going to only grade 3 of the running backs. But I think you and I both believe that Craig Reynolds is going to be tough.
We're grading depth, right? Beyond that, we're grading depth, right?
Depth is not one of our categories on running back. We are grading the top 3 because teams like the Bears, who have 3, they want, that's your 3 back rotation, right? We know that they're going to carry 3 running backs, maybe a 4th, and especially like Vaki, who could play special teams. But this site, Our Lads, that I look at all the time when it comes to depth charts, they have Vaki vaulting past Craig Reynolds, whereas we have Craig Reynolds because we know Craig is loved by the coaching staff.
Craig.
Come on, Craig. Like in Hard Knocks, if you remember Dan Campbell, who else is going to feel like they got kicked in the gut if we lose Craig? So, and that block that he threw on Carlton Davis last year in Tampa just made him a Detroit legend for a while. So I think it's going to be very hard to take his job. So we are going, for the sake of this exercise, we are going to grade Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Craig Reynolds. So David Montgomery on a scale from 1 to 11 for me is a solid 8. Jahmyr Gibbs also an 8. Because neither one of these guys are the guy that doesn't need the other. I think these 2 backs rely on each other. This thunder and lightning thing, I think they're hitting. Back by committee is what's popular in the NFL. You don't see a bell cow back much anymore. So in order to get an 11 from Main Event Mike, you need to be a bell cow back. You need to be Derrick Henry in his prime, Adrian Peterson, Barry Sanders, something like that. And I just don't see a back like that yet. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs could be that, but I'm going to give them both a solid 8. But on a 3rd string running back, Craig Reynolds gets a 7. So that makes my overall score for the running back room would be about a 7.5 out of 11. I know that's low because I'm tough. It takes a lot to get over 10 for me.
Right. I am not digging our flow with how this running back room thing is going. I know that I was saying when we were talking in our pre-production about, that we shouldn't talk about these other things, but it's like it's like we got to talk about each one of these guys, right? Like you want to rate David Montgomery, I like that 8. That's a good 8 rating. And I think that he played it at about an 8 rating last year. He was a really, really good, solid guy. And I think he's going to continue to play how he is. And continue to be a solid guy. When it comes to Jahmyr Gibbs, last year, I think it took like 5, 6, they would say 7 games for Jahmyr Gibbs to find his spot. He actually said that he was going too fast at the beginning, but when he found his footing, so I would rate Jahmyr Gibbs last year. I think he played at about an 8 as well, but I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to play at a 10 or 11 this year. I think he's going to break out and be one of the best running backs, and they are 1A and 1B, but I think that this season they're gonna flip-flop. And it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs is the 1A, but it's going to look like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram did in New Orleans when they were on top of the world right there. Now, as far as Sione Vaki goes, I mean, special teams is going to get this guy on the team because this guy is so valuable as a tackler and he's so versatile. I think he does bring depth to the running back position. If he beats out Craig Reynolds, it's a 3-4 instead of a 4-3. But as a overall strength of the room from top to bottom, I give the overall room. I would give the overall room a 9 out of a complete package of what you expect out of a running back room.
Okay. So my average came out to about a 7.5. You said you're going to give a 9. So that puts us at about an 8 and a third. but we'll call it an 8. So we'll give the running back room an 8.5 as well.
Yeah, but I do want to know your thoughts when we go through each one of these things on where you think it was. Think of what the room was last year and kind of be like, here's where it was, here's where it is. Even if it's the same, even if it's just kind of like, okay, well, nothing's really changed. That's fine. But I would like to acknowledge that you guys out there too, because this is an experiment right here. When we get to the end of it, I really want it to be known where the improvement, how much it actually is. So,
right. Donkey Kong says he's giving the running back room a 10. Tim says Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside. Dwayne says I gave David Montgomery a 9 and Gibbs a 9 and Craig a 7. That's probably more accurate right there, Dwayne. A 9, a 9, and a 7. That looks right on to me because I'm not giving Jahmyr Gibbs enough credit. I get that. Tim says Craig on passing downs. Dave likes 8 for Monty, 7 for Gibbs, and 5 for Craig. Dave.
So how about this? How about we round robin each person instead of setting the whole thing, and just like each person, you give your thoughts on that person. You start with whoever you want in that room,
All right. And all right. And then we'll collectively come up with a score.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I like that. All right. We're good.
So now we're moving. Improv guys, sometimes we make it up as we go along. Sorry, Mike.
Let's finish this conversation about the running backs real quick. We got some good ones out here. Remember, Craig had to start in one because Monty and Gibbs were both out. Absolutely true. Also, Craig Reynolds does bring return ability, blocking. He's a good blocking back on passing downs. And he's already shown, he can score from the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
Some dude named John Dorn gives the running back room a 6. Detroit Fan Man says Vaki's secret abilities inflate the running back due to extended depth and intrigue. Right. Upside, right? I mean, that's just a way of saying upside, Fan Man. I like that call. I'm probably giving Vaki too low of a grade as well. But let's move on to wide receivers.
It was a solid room, and it is a solid room. I think that I think that we haven't lost anything. We're still going forward right there. So wide receiver room. Yeah.
Oh, so on that note, the wide receiver room lost Josh Reynolds. And they didn't really gain anything that they didn't already have.
Right.
So did they get better by losing Josh Reynolds?
Well, it depends on if you like the progression of Jameson Williams. I mean, you got Dan Campbell that's out in press conferences touting this guy. Now, and before you Packer fans, I know that there's a couple of them on here, before you go, oh, well, you just go listen to the coach. Listen, if you listen to anything that Dan Campbell says, Dan Campbell will call you out, and he ain't going to give you empty praise. He ain't trying to make anybody feel better about themselves when he gives empty praise. So if he says that Jameson Williams is the most improved guys in every phase and says everywhere, he means that. So when you lose Josh Reynolds, you lose about 60 targets. If Jameson Williams gets those 60 targets, yeah, I think there's going to be a hell of a lot more touchdowns this year.
Right on. All right. So you're taking lead on this one. Then tell me what's going on in this wide receiver room. You got J-Mo, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Khalif Raymond, Antoine Green. You got a bunch of guys down the line. Also a new guy, an undrafted free agent from Illinois, Isaiah Williams, I believe his name is. There's some guys here. What are you thinking on a grade for this wide receiver room?
Well, how about start with Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Elise Meme says that he's a solid 11.
Yeah.
We're talking about him as a player, Elise.
Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown got the big contract. I mean, there's no reason not to rate him 11. He had 1,500 yards receiving last year. He was a monster in the playoffs. Like, what are you going to say? If I say he's not an 11, that's kind of dumb because he's a top 5 wide receiver.
Then I guess I'm dumb because I won't give him an 11. Calvin Johnson would be an 11 to me. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is amazing. I love him, but he's a 10. He's a 10 for me.
Oh,
because he doesn't have that X body. He doesn't have that X receiver body like Megatron had. he does so many things better than anyone else, but there is that bit of a hole in his game. So even Bash here says Amon-Ra's a 10.5. There you go, Ama. There you go, Bash. I'm going to give him a 10.5. Me and Bash are aligned on this.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I think that the guy does everything that he needs to do. You can count on him for 120 hard catches every year. They're in the best times. He blocks. He's a 5-tool, wide receiver. And I don't know what he could do to get there for you other than be taller. And yeah, and more athletic. But it is what it is right there. So when I rate Jameson Williams, I rate him like from last year, I would say 3 out of 11, because it was he dropped a lot of balls, but he was really exciting too. But he's had a lot of work to do. But I do believe that he'll move that number up this year to at least an 8. He'll be an 8. He'll be a solid player. He's going to at least be a number 2. And hell, if he's as good as what Dan Campbell says that he is, and he turns into a bona fide 13 target a game guy, that's pretty dangerous with his skill set. So he could be a number 1 type of numbers.
I'm also going to give J-Mo an 8. I've always been pretty critical of J-Mo, and I don't think he's lived up to that 12th overall pick yet. But now that Josh Reynolds is gone, and the way that J-Mo played down the stretch last year, I 100% believe that this guy's going to be the solid number 2. Now, is that still worthy of an 12th overall pick to get a number 2 receiver? Probably not. But if he gets 40 catches and catches 700 yards and at least 7 touchdowns, that'll be good wide receiver 2 numbers, worthy of an 8. And I 100% think he's going to do that this year. So that's why I'm giving him an 8.
And I like that call too. Like, you got like a 700. Like, if he does what you say right there, I think 700, that's not worth the 12th overall right there. But if Jameson goes out and he does 1,200 yards receiving and scores 12 touchdowns this year, then he's lived that it doesn't matter where you pop. A lot of guys pop in the first years, but it's like once you've peaked, once they find out who you are. I don't believe that the NFL's found out who Jameson Williams is yet. So once they found out who that is, if that's 1,200, it's worth it. If it's 700, okay, I can live with it, but you probably reached.
Okay. Well, our lads, the site I use for depth chart, has Khalif Raymond as the wide receiver 3, as the slot wide receiver, even though we know he probably will line up on the Y, and they'd have Amon-Ra in the slot, probably, more than likely. So Khalif Raymond, he's one of my favorite players, but on a scale from 1 to 11, he's a middle of the road receiver in this league. He's a team guy, he's a character guy, he's a possession, he's a reliable guy, but you're not asking Khalif Raymond to make 10 catches a game for you.
Right.
So that suffers his grade for me. I give Khalif Raymond a solid 7. So that's your starters. The depth after that is Antoine Green, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So what do you think about an overall grade for this room? When I look at it, I'm giving Amon-Ra 10.5, a J-Mo 8, Khalif a 7, and these other guys are going to be less than that. I'm going to give the total room an 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would give the whole total room a 7.5, and in my opinion, because it does the talent level. Unless Jameson is, that bona fide dude, then the room is just kind of, you got Raymond and Peoples are okay. They're serviceable, but I think both those guys are more of number 4 dudes, but you never know. But right now I'm going to give the room boss 7.5 total overall. Amon-Ra's a stud. He gets an 11 from me, but all the other guys give Jameson an 8. And then I would give Khalif like a 6. Cause he's there. He's good for in a pinch,
right?
He'll make the catch.
No, this is gonna be a tough one, and our good friend Woody is here from the Hallis Hall Report. Hey, Woody, great to see you in here. Hey, guys, been a long time.
You like that?
So, Bash gives Khalif Raymond an 8. Donkey Kong's got a 9 for the wide receiver room. He gave the running back room a 10. But seeing Woody in here really spurs me to think something. Where does this wide receiver room rank? 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the NFC North? Now that you got Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Romo Dunze in Chicago, that's a hell of a trio. Addison, Osborne, and JJ in Minnesota, that's a hell of a trio. And then you got the guys Dontavian Wicks and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs out there in Green Bay. Where does this trio now of Jamo, Amon-Ra, and Khalif Raymond rate, honestly, in your opinion?
And this isn't a slight on my own guys. I mean, I all of the other trios that you mentioned right there, that trio that they have in Chicago is awesome. Those are really 3 awesome guys. You're drafting guys high, and that the trio they have in Green Bay is awesome, and they're awesome and young. That's not where the strength of our pass catchers is, but I would rate them at the bottom of that list. I mean, Justin Jefferson is. I mean, I might put him ahead of that room because I don't know what I don't know. I can't even do that because they got Addison too. Mm-hmm. So it's like, as far as wide receivers, probably the Lions would be at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would put him. I would put him third because I just don't believe in Green Bay. I think that our guys are better than Green Bay's guys. I just do.
Okay.
I mean, I just do. Dobbs, Wicks. These guys are as good. That might be neck and neck. So I'll let me being a Lions fan.
Ain't that it though?
Overdo it.
I mean, are we real? I mean, you're talking, very, very small increments. If I'm saying between 1 and 4,
right?
The best wide receiver room and the worst wide receiver room is like this much.
It's definitely between Minnesota and Chicago for number 1, and that's only because we haven't seen Roma Dunze take an NFL snap yet. We know what KJ Osborne is, and he's a solid wide receiver 3. That's it. When he was asked to jump up and be wide receiver 2, he got beat out by a rookie, Jordan Addison, and he automatically went back to number 3 again after the departure of Adam Thielen. So we know that KJ Osborne's a solid wide receiver 3. We know that Khalif Raymond's a solid wide receiver 3. Dubs and Wicks, these guys might be both wide receiver 2s, right? To that level. So, I mean, it's really hard pill to swallow to say that the Lions probably have the worst of the 4. And I love our guys, but we do have the best tight end, and that's the next room that we're going to next.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's a great lead in.
Right. I think we do have the best tight end room in the league, the best single tight end in Sam Laporta because of his age, upside, what he did last year, and the guys around him, his coach being a former tight end, Brock Wright, who's a consummate pro and just a solid number 2. When you look up number 2 tight end in the dictionary, it's Brock Wright. He's a better blocker than the number 1 guy, right? There's a lot of 2 tight end things going around these days, though, where it's like, look at what the Raiders are going to have now. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. I mean, they're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. A lot of these teams already do. You saw the Green Bay Packers drafted 2 tight ends last year, Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. This is a new way that they're attacking in the NFL. And I don't know that Brock Wright is going to be better than some of these other tight end 2s. The guy in Minnesota that backs up Hawkinson is like the best tight end 2 in the league. Is it what's his name?
As a blocker, yeah. He play.
He's one of the high. He is the highest paid backup tight end in the league. I know that.
Right.
What's his name? Doggone, it's driving me nuts right there. I should have.
You had it right. It's Oliver.
It's Oliver. Yeah.
It's Oliver.
It's Oliver. Yeah, like that cat in the Disney movie. Woody says we don't know about Roma Dunze yet. He has to prove himself. Exactly. That's the only reason they're not number 1. Otherwise, they would. If he lives up to be 3/4 of what he was in college, y'all will have the best wide receiver trio in the league. I still think Justin Jefferson is the best single player of them all, and I don't know how many miles Keenan Allen has left on the tires. But I
It's
can
like,
tell
Tom,
you,
we're doing we're trying our best not to be homers here. I mean, I mean, our homer tax would push at least a couple of our players right to 11. I mean,
that's right. There's a homer tax. I forgot
there's a
about the
home,
homer tax.
yeah. So we're
If a guy
trying
if a
not
guy gets a 7 and he's a Lion, he gets an extra point for the homer tax.
out of respect for our Bear, Packer, and Viking fans that are watching, we're trying to keep the homer tax out. We're trying to pull the homer tax back. I mean, I would love to tell you that Jameson Williams is going to have 1,200 yards receiving and we have one of the best wide receiver rooms, but I don't know if he's going to do that. We hope that he does, and if he does, yeah, maybe we are the, second best wide receiver room. But for right now, in our tight end room, Sam Laporta, what a hit that is. What a legendary draft that's going to be with Sam Laporta. And the thing is why I'm not worried about my wide receiver room being all good, because our number 2 target on this team is Sam Laporta. He's the number 2 wide receiver. Right. So we're asking Jameson Williams really as the number 2 receiver to be the number 3 option. And I don't know where Jahmyr Gibbs falls into that thing, but our offense doesn't work like, this is tight end does this much, wide receiver do this much. It's like we use our skill positions against the team. So it depends on what team we play on how we're going to kill them. Mm-hmm. I mean, unalive them. I'm sorry. I can't use kill anymore.
That's right. Don't say the K word. So tight end room, I got Sam Laporta getting a 10 out of an 11. There's nothing the guy doesn't do well. He does everything well. He's so athletic. His awareness is unbelievable for a tight end. I give Brock Wright a solid 8. So glad we were able to retain him, not only what he does on the field, but what he brings to the locker room as well. James Mitchell, 5th round draft pick by Brad Holmes. I'm giving him a solid 7. You do have Shane Zylstra behind that, but I'm going to rate this overall. I'm going to give this whole room a 9.
An overall 9. I like that.
You like that?
When I look at Brock Wright and Sam Laporta, I don't know, unless I actually give them an actual homer tax and lower it, I can't give him anything other than an 11, because what more can you ask out of your tight end to play as the top 3, the position? I mean, what more can you ask out of your guy? And if he is that guy, then I have to give him the 11. I have to give him the cheese. And Brock Wright, he's one of the best blocking tight ends. He's faster than people give him credit for. Just go back and look at that Jets game and watch him run for that long touchdown. They didn't think he was that fast either. So he's sneaky fast. He does a good job at being tight end too. And then James Mitchell, they drafted him in the 4th round. Shane Zylstra, these guys have been around. So I'm just going to grade all 3 of those other guys at the same, the backup tight end room, at I would say about a 9.5 total overall. You like those guys. You didn't have to change anything.
Okay. So I gave him a 9. You gave him a 9.5. Put it in the comments. Tell us what you think. Bash says the tight end room is a 10.
Yep.
Bash also thinks Laporta gets an 11.
And it doesn't change much from last year to this year.
Right.
So
right. And
that's
you do
another
have Shane
point
Zylstra back there. And Donkey Kong says Gibbs will do a lot for the wide receiver aspect. Also, the fact that we're going to throw a lot of balls to him, especially over the middle, right out of the backfield. So that's, like having another wide receiver. Dwayne gives the tight end room a 9 as well. And Dave says the tight end room is a 10. So I like it. Put it in the comments. Tell us what you think. I think we got one more room. Take a look at your phone there, Russ. We got one more room here to round out the offense. It's the offensive line, the strength of this team.
I don't have my phone with me.
Oh, man, really? Okay. Well, offensive line, of course, the strength of this team. Taylor Decker at left tackle. Graham Glasgow starting at left guard. Frank Ragnow at center. Kevin Zeitler, newly acquired from the Ravens, at right guard. And the all-pro under 25, Penei Sewell at right tackle. The most expensive offensive line in the league. Definitely top 2 offensive line in the league. Doesn't matter what fan you're a team of, you know that this is a good O-line. It's the depth after that becomes the question. Out of 11, this whole starting line together is a 10. Would you agree with that?
At least. I mean,
At least a 10.
It was a 10 last year when it came from the starters, and you moved out Jonah Jackson and brought in a Pro Bowl guard. So you actually you got better. You upgraded the talent from a top 5 offensive line. So from the starter, it's a 10. I'll give it a 10. I'll take a homer tax on that. I'll take the hit. I want to make it an 11, but I'll give it a 10. And there's no disputing that.
No, in fact, if it wasn't for an inoperable toe injury to Frank Ragnow, it would be an 11 for me. That's the only thing that kills it for me for every one of these guys, is knowing that his availability isn't always assured. I mean, offensive line is always injury prone on any team, but that is such a tenuous injury that I just the depth behind it scares me.
He don't care. He don't care.
So
the guy's only missed 2 games in his whole career, even though you would think he missed more because he's missed a ton of practices. But this guy don't care about his toe.
So the site that I use called Our Lads has Giovanni Manu penciled in right now as the backup right tackle to Penei Sewell. I just don't know about that. I mean, I can't see. Dan Skipper is the backup left tackle to Taylor Decker. You have Colby Sorsdahl is the backup to Kevin Zeitler. Mm-hmm. There's no depth there that I feel really great about. Awasika backing up Graham Glasgow. Now we know that if Ragnow was to go down, that Graham Glasgow can slide over to center. Mm-hmm. So who do you have behind him? Awasika? I'm not really, really sold on that. You've also got Kingsley Igwekon, who was signed as an undrafted free agent who plays center, and Michael Neese, who plays center on this team. So they have added a couple of centers to this team in the event that Frank Ragnow gets hurt. What do you think about this offensive line? I'm going to give, because the depth knocks it down a point, I have to give this O-line a 9.
All right, so we definitely differ right here because I hate that take. I love you, Mike, but I hate that take because it's just like saying, hey, I don't believe in Brad Holmes, because the thing is like what's the alternative is you want depth, you want somebody that that feels good right there. So you're going to have to go out there and get that guy. And then you're going to have to kick Manu and you're going to have to kick Mahogany off the team because you want your depth. You want your depth that So when you say that, it's like, oh, I don't like the depth. It's like, well, they drafted that guy to be there. And it shouldn't be a surprise that they're predicting that Manu's going to be there as a backup tackle this year. And, hopefully he doesn't have to get right out there like Sorsdahl got thrown out there. And there's the second part. Sorsdahl. I feel a hell of a lot better about Sorsdahl this year, getting thrown into the wolves last year. He struggled for the things they asked him to play tackle and he hadn't even practiced at it because we were so stretched out last year. And now he has a whole off season. I feel good with him backing up one of the guard positions. And then Mahogany, that was one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. I think he's so good that he might push Glasgow for the starting other guard job. So okay. I feel good about their depth. So I'm going to give their depth. I'm going to move the whole line. The whole line is going to stay at a 10. I like their depth. I like their starters. They have a good plan just in case guys go down, just like you alluded to. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of moving that goes around before depth becomes an issue is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tim says the O-line would be a 10.5. The greatest O-line of all time, the Hogs, would be the only 11 for Tim Flynn. I like that call out. Dwayne says all O-line's a 10.5. Dave Eastman gives the O-line an 11 out of 11. Why not 10? Because this one goes to 11.
You see,
Donkey Kong giving the O-line a 10 too. Go ahead, Russ.
We're going to buy the kneecap off.
Yeah.
We're going to buy the kneecap off.
I'm not saying you guys can put your homer taxes on. I'm good.
We're going to buy the kneecap off.
Right on.
Oh, good stuff right there. So, yeah. So it was strength. Last year we had really good offensive line because you brought up Awasika. Our depth was good last year. It was tested, but it was good. It held up. We won 12 games. It's playoff games. It's like, I would call that good depth, because it held out, even though it got devastated in the middle of the season. You wouldn't even know it. God, they were moving guards and tackles all around, bringing up guys like,
bringing up guys on the practice squad. We didn't even know who they were. I remember us being in line and pulling out our little notes. Who's that guy? So yeah, for sure.
But I would say that the depth was good last year, and it's good this year. So there we go. Throughout the offense, one thing with our experiment we found out here is that there's really not a big change through offense all the way through. A couple guys, at the second, third positions moving around a little bit, but outside of that, we pretty much have the same offense that we did last year with a couple upgrades, little ones.
Well, our next room, we're going room by room here on the Main Event Football Show, broadcasting live into Lions Villain Squad on Facebook, also broadcasting live into Detroit Lions News Podcast, also broadcasting into the Huddle Sports Network on Roku. We're talking about...
We're on Roku.
We on Roku. Gesundheit. Rating the position group improvement on a scale to 11 because we're musicians, and we move now to the defensive line. A room that has had some changes. We lost Benito Jones. We lost anyone named Aquara.
Oh, no.
And we gained some dogs. DJ Reader, defensive tackle from Cincinnati Bengals. We also drafted Mekhi Wingo from LSU. And we also brought in free agent Marcus Davenport, the oft-injured Marcus Davenport. And OurLads.com has the starting defensive line as Aiden Hutchinson, Ali McNeil, DJ Reader, and Marcus Davenport. All of those guys, we haven't seen them play as a unit yet. That's two new faces to go along with Aleem and Hutch. I think this is going to be the biggest change we're going to see. I'm betting on Davenport not having an injury-plagued season. I'm betting on Davenport that we saw in 2019, who played 14 games and had 9.5 sacks. That's the Davenport I'm hoping to get there at the right defensive end. DJ Reader's going to eat up so much space. He's going to allow more sacks for the rest of the guys. He's going to unlock Jack Campbell. He is the cheat code to unlock Jack Campbell at linebacker, the way he manipulates the gap, and he's going to create lanes for Jack Campbell to get into the backfield, and Alex Anzalone as well. I think that this line is so solid. I'm going to go as high as a 10, one of the best D lines in the league by the fourth or fifth game. That's what I think.
What would you say that they were last year, Mike? Like, what would you rate the defensive line from last year?
They led the league in pressures, but they were 18th in sacks. So our secondary was so bad, right, that they were able to find an open receiver before our guys could get home, is what that stat tells me.
No, I want you to give me that scale rating for last year, because you just gave him a 10 for this year, right?
Yeah, so I would have gave him a 7.5 last year.
Ooh, wow. That's right there. That's how I'll open up mine. Right there. What Mike just said. DJ Reader is so good and so much of a drastic improvement that it improved the entire defensive line because of what he can do by 2.5 points on Mike's scale. That right there magnifies it. I love that you did that right there. I think you're absolutely right. It was about a 7 because they couldn't get home. They would get almost there, but they couldn't get home. That might have been the secondary's fault, but DJ Reader helps a guy like Aiden Hutchinson so much. They're going to get lockstep. They're going to understand. It's like, when this quarterback's going to try to escape in this lane, I ain't going for the sack. I'm going to hold these two guys, stand firm right here, and he's going to have to escape into Hutchinson. That's the type of defensive tackle he plays right there. So yeah, I do believe that moves up. Now, you like Davenport. That's what your depth chart says right here, but I'm betting on third-year player Josh Pascal to step up. There's something about third-year players in Brad Holmes draft picks with Derek Barnes and Ifeatu Melifonwu. There's just something about these third-year guys that their skill set and mindset seems to mesh in a third year. This is Josh Pascal's turn Davenport's going to be a great little depth piece, and he'll probably play the 3 games before he's injured and get 2 sacks, and we'll be going to be good with that. But it's going to be Josh Pascal. You got James Houston in there. I'm going to give this room a 10 as well, right there, and that's no homer.
Nice.
You're talking.
Nice. And I do like the depth as opposed to the offensive line. I like the depth on this defensive line, and this is what our lads has backing up Hutch. Our lads has your guy Josh Pascal as his primary backup. We know that Hutch plays 98% of the snaps anyway.
Right.
Behind that, James Houston. On the other end, backing up Marcus Davenport, they have John Kaminsky, who's still under contract for $4.5 million a year this year, and Matthew Betts, the Canadian Football Defensive Player of the Year, 18.
We're going to buy the kneecap off.
That's just your defensive ends. But with Hutch playing 98%, I don't see how these guys even get on the field much, except that other end. If Davenport gets hurt, right? And then in the middle, you've got Ali McNeil, and then they have Levi Onwuzurike as the backup, and then Mekhi Wingo, the rookie from LSU, third string. I'm not sure Levi's going to make this team. He will be the first real bust that Brad Holmes has had if he doesn't make this team. So I just don't know what's going on there. DJ Reader, guess who they have backing up DJ Reader? Broderick Martin. And behind that, Kyle Pecco, the guy they just brought in from Tennessee Titans, who used to be coached by our new D-line coach, Terrell Williams. I also think that's a point that we missed, having new D-line coach Terrell Williams, one of the best in the business, to shape this lineup. I mean, they totally deserve that 10 that we gave them. So a lot of defensive depth here on the defensive line. There's 8 guys there. You're going to be rotating in and out.
And so right there, what we just explained right there is the reason they didn't go out and sign huge names. It's like when you believe in your development, we need to go out and get this guy. But here's Broderick Martin coming into his second year. You didn't think about him much last year, but he's been changing his body and been listening to the coaching. And you're going to see these guys. Some of these guys are a couple year projects.
Mm-hmm.
But
our good friend Ken says DJ Reader will be a monster on the line. Bash says the defensive line is a 10.5 in that room. Dwayne says 10 also. Ethan in the comments, welcome to the program. D-line is a 9 as an upgrade and 8 before, hoping the upgrade is more than I'm thinking. Right. With a better secondary who are going to be able to cover longer, it might be better than that, Ethan. So that's a good call out.
So that's
Dave says D-line's a 9. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, here, what we pointed out on the offense, what we found out on the offense is there really wasn't much that changed. You got a really, really good offense that's pretty much coming back, and they're as good as their progression is.
Right.
Now, here we are with the very first position on defense, where a lot of people would have rated that, 6.5, 7, maybe 7.5. A couple of them had it at 8, and everybody agrees that room has gone up in a couple points just because of the upgrades with DJ Reader and Mekhi Wingo. Be careful, guys. This guy was supposed to be a 3rd round pick. He was in the top 100 players. A lot of people had him mocked in the 3rd round right there. That was a great value pick. Expect him to be the kind of guy that might be able to work up a depth chart and beat out a guy like Levi Onwuzurike. So, in my opinion,
he's a 6-foot tackle, defensive tackle, that John Randall mold, So I like it. Ethan says Broderick looks like a different man physically. Yeah, we had that up on our page. The transformation. Russ had put together that slide that went circulating around the internet, and Broderick Martin with the long arms. And my favorite part about that, he's listed as DJ Reader's backup, and DJ Reader, when asked about it in his introductory press conference as a Lion, said, "I'm looking forward to mentoring that guy and making him better." And
can't wait to get my hands on him.
Can't wait to get my hands on him. Yeah, exactly. Because you can't teach 6'5", 360. I love it.
Longest arms in NFL combine history too. Yeah, dude got some long arms.
So that brings us to the linebacker room. Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone. But we're only going to start 2 of those guys because we play a hybrid 4-2-5. So which 2 of these 2 guys do you think are going to start? Jack Campbell and Anzalone, right?
Absolutely. And that's no slight on Derek Barnes. It's just like Jack Campbell's the kind of guy that's going to work and work and work and work and work until he figures it out. And last year he tried to find himself. I think it took him like what 10, 11 games where it's like Anzalone and Barnes balled out. There's nothing against that. I mean, you got to earn your way onto the slot. And when Anzalone got injured, Jack Campbell jumped in there at that middle linebacker spot and never gave it back. They put Anzalone at the weak side linebacker, and we kept that there. Well, that trend remains. He filled out his body. Aaron Glenn said he looks like a man now, and he's ready to get that. They said he's training like a green dot. So I like Jack Campbell right in the middle of that. Anzalone as the other linebacker. I mean, Barnes and Rodriguez and Reeves Maybin are excellent depth. I mean,
exactly where I was going with it. I think that Anzalone and Barnes are both a solid 8. I think Jack Campbell right now is a solid 8 with the potential to be much better than that. But right now I'm going to grade him as an 8. So all three of those guys get an 8 across the board. It's that depth after that. Jalen Reeves Maybin, Rodrigo, Steele Chambers, this new guy they got from that university in Columbus. I think that.
Oh, you like him now?
I think that no.
We're going to buy the kneecap off.
That guy Steele Chambers they got from Taylor Decker's school. When you add all those guys in, I definitely got to give that solid depth enough rating to rate the entire room an 8.5. They get a 0.5 point bump for their depth instead of anything deducted in this room.
I love it.
8.5 solid on the linebackers for me.
So Mike's got him at 8.5. Russell Wayne, what I like to do is tell you what it was last year. Last year, I really liked the room, and there really isn't much that's changed from last year. Like I had said, Anzalone and Barnes had started out the year, but Jack Campbell had played a rotational piece within that for the entire season. So now the only thing that's changed is a couple of the guys flipped out, but the same guys are backing each other up. So I gave them an 8 from last year. I like that. There's a nice solid room, and I'm going to give the entire room a 9 this year because we're talking about progression, and I have to believe that there'll be a progression, and that is not a homer tax. I'm not being homeristic. It's okay to think that your guys might get 1 year better. So 8 from last year, 9 for this year. Keeping the depth intact. Love the depth. Love Rodriguez. He can play fullback if you need him, but you can play linebacker in a pinch. Reeves Maybin plays linebacker in a pinch. And awesome special teams. Mm-hmm. So,
Tim Flynn says Campbell is no Spielman. Are you sure? Are you sure, Tim?
I don't know.
Going into year 2, are you 100% sure that he's not Spielman or even better than Spielman? This kid's got all the tools, buddy.
You watch.
You watch did you see how fast he was learning last year?
These guys, I mean, do you realize, let me throw some knowledge on you last year. I mean, if there's anybody out there that doubts what Campbell was doing, here's a guy that quietly, just behind the scenes tackled 97 guys. Like, oops. Oh, yeah. Oh, might it be a bust? 97 tackles in his rookie year. Shush. Right. Like, I mean, come on.
Are you sure, Tim, that Campbell's no Spielman? We shall see. I think I really like this guy, Jack Campbell, and this draft pick is going to turn out to be, like you said, this draft is going to be historic when you get Campbell and Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch. Isn't even fair? Is this even fair? Brad Holmes is playing chess, guys. Ken Fisher says Brian Branch to become a Pro Bowler this year. Pro Bowl nickel corner or a Pro Bowl safety.
So here's the now since Mike just transitioned right there, we're trying to get into some of these secondary guys. Mike's really gonna hate. He loves my graphics, but he's gonna hate how I made these graphics, starting with the safety room. And oh yeah,
is that CJ Moore? You got CJ Moore in at safety? He's back with the team now.
CJ Moore is back with the team, and I only put him on there because he provides like second tier depth. But because of the draft, and I'll set this up because you're going to tell me I'm wrong here in a minute, but I'll set this up by saying because of the way that things happen in the draft, I do believe, and they've already been training Brian Branch at safety to provide depth at that safety. They didn't do anything in the draft with safety. So you have Kirby Joseph and Ifatu Malafanu. I think they'll move Brian Branch back there because you brought in some of these guys that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I believe they're going to be unleashing him. And you can look at my video on YouTube if you want to go there and check out that one. Look at that video that I have about how I think that this new defense is going to unleash Brian Branch as the next big time defender in the NFL. But for this room, man, what do you think of this safety room, Mike?
I'm giving this room an 8.5 because I think as free safety goes, Kirby's one of the best free safeties, definitely in the NFC. And Iffy had such a breakout year last year, especially the last 6 games down the stretch, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions down the stretch. He's long. We remember he's converted from corner, so he has some position versatility there too. So I am going to put Brian Branch and CJ Moore in this room also because of that position versatility that Iffy has. So these guys can be moved around the chessboard. So I'm going to give this room a solid 8.5 for the safety room for the Detroit Lions.
Wow, man, I'm so impressed with that, Mike. I'm happy to hear you come in. And I'm not just because I want to be right or not or anything like that, but it's just like it is that position versatility when it comes with this. And because they were able to get Enos Rakestraw and add depth to that part of the room, it is able to move Brian Branch back to that spot to where all these other guys are playing man, but this guy's looking over the entire play like a hawk, being able to pick his spots right there. That's a job for Brian Branch. And I believe that this room is going to be a 9.5 this year all the way around because he's jumping into it. And you got Ifatu Malafanu, who I don't think is a starting safety. I think he's a weapon. I think he's a guy you bring in there and you throw him on the line with some of your other safeties and you throw him and run him after the quarterback and you let Kirby and Brian Branch be in the back. That just feels dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if he's length and those long arms, he just comes in and puts his hands up. Even if he's not even close to the quarterback, he's going to be disruptive and in that kind of a scenario. So I like that call. Yeah, for sure. Safeties.
I want to give it a 10. But that homer in me, I got to bring it back to 9.5 because I'm pumping down the expectations a little bit, but it's more up there like 10.5 for me when I'm really thinking about how good they can be like that.
Ethan agrees with you that Brian Branch is going to be a top 3 safety this year. Kirby's going to continue to be a mess. If he found his confidence, this room is a 10 out of 11. Mm-hmm. I gave it an 8. I gave it an 8.5. Russ gave it a 9. So we're looking at an 8.7 from the Villain Squad. Sorry about that. Anyway, safety room. Dwayne says 8.5 to a 9 for the safety room, and Bash says safety room is a 10. So appreciate everyone putting their comments in tonight. We got a couple of more positions to go. None more important than the next one, which is the corner room. The room that was the weak spot on this team last year. And look at what Brad Holmes has done. Look at this slick graphic. Carlton Davis, free agent acquisition from Tampa. Amik Robertson, free agent acquisition from the Raiders. Drafting the 2 best press man corners in the country. Enos Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold, respectively. And then who's this guy? Emmanuel Mosley. Don't count him out. Oh, ye of the glass ACL. We got him on a good deal. He was loaded with talent when he first got here. I mean, I'm not counting on him for anything. I'm not even going to grade Emmanuel Mosley because how can you? He's seen fewer plays than Abraham Lincoln on this team.
But when you look at this, the thing that stands out to this right here is only 2 of these guys are going to be out there at any one time. So you need to realize that like any one of these, you got Carlton Davis. I think that Carlton Davis and our first round draft pick are probably going to win that 1-2 slot. And their style is what Aaron Glenn plays. Like it's what he wants to do. And if you listen to Aaron Glenn's press conference, it's like he didn't rip on the last year's regime, but he did allude to that the new cornerbacks that they have in this room allow him to play the type of defense that he wants to play. And we couldn't last year. If you got to play off the ball, you can't play smothering defense right there. We got exploited in the secondary last year. If I had to rate the secondary last year with Jerry Jacobs and Will Harris and Cameron Sutton and Kendall Vildor, I mean, we're talking what? 2 out of 10, maybe? Really, 1 out of 10? I mean, they were the worst in the NFL.
27th ranked pass defense in the NFL.
I mean, 2 if you're being nice. I mean, that's where we came from. And now, I mean, really, how drastically improved this room, even if it was only a 6, it would be drastically improved, but it's way better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Carlton Davis is a bona fide starter. This isn't a guy that they're going to have to bring up the speed. This is a guy that Aaron Glenn knows that plays the type of cornerback that is the strength of Carlton Davis. He's not asking him to play zone if you're going to throw goofy PFF stuff at me. He doesn't play zone. He's not a good zone corner. We're not going to ask him to do that.
Jonathan says corner room, I'm giving a solid 8.5.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good grade. Now, Carlton Davis, I'll give him an 8. I don't know what he's going to look like in a Lions uniform yesterday, but he's a press man corner who was stuck playing in a zone scheme last year, and he was pretty good. So I'm going to give him an 8. Brian Branch gets a 9 for me as a slot corner. He's one of the best slot corners already. He pretty much should get a 10. Amik Robertson, I like this guy. I'm going to give him a solid 8 as well. The other guys are rookies. Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw. Don't know what I'm getting there. That's hurting the room. Until we see him take a snap, that's just the way I am. I can't rate him too high. I'll give Arnold an 8 because he's a first-round draft pick and Rakestraw a 7. So when I look at all of these, I'm giving this room an 8. But last year, I would have gave this room a 3.
Yeah, and look at that right there. So look at there's main event Mike's with going from a 3 to an 8. That's so much of a drastic improvement. Like when you're looking at some of these other teams in our own division where they're talking about how they got better in these positions. This position in particular, like Mike doesn't want to rate these rookies as being good yet because they haven't been good yet. And I completely respect that. But I am going to give those guys that solid 8. I'm going to respect your rule right there because I think that both of those guys, Rakestraw and Arnold, can be better than that. But we're going to put him at 8 just to be no homer tax. Okay.
There you go.
But Carlton Davis, I mean, this guy, as far as you look back at his tape through press corner, asking him to play man on man. This guy is one of the top in the league. Asking him to do that. I'm going to give him a 9. I'm going to give him a 9. I'm going to give Amik an 8. And I'm going to give the whole room, what? That would be like an 8.3 or something like that. Yeah. So we're on the same pace.
All right. I like it. Here in the comments, Ken says, Mike Russell, what are the odds of the Lions going undefeated during the regular season? Can you let me know? I can let you know. A snowball's chance in hell for any team. Those are astronomical odds. Don't take it. But I will tell you this, Ken, the over-under for the Lions is 10.5. And you think they're even flirting with a 17-0 season? If you even think they're in the conversation of that, run out and put your money on the over 10.5 because that's what Vegas is betting on the Lions right now.
And they won't go they will not go undefeated. I mean, this is the NFL. These guys are so good, guys. Like, even the guys that you don't know about are good.
Right.
The ones that we're not talking about, the guys that are on the practice squad, they're all so good.
Rounding out Donkey Kong's predictions today, he gave the linebackers an 8, the safeties a 9, the corners an 8. So Donkey's he's a tough critic, but he's fair. I like it. Lloyd says, what was your DB rating before the season last year? Comparing this year's on paper to last year's actual play is not fair. Okay, you're right, but that's why it's called a projection, right? We're projecting, rating the room based on the talent that came in. Last year we are giving last year's ratings too. I gave it a 3 last year, but definitely we thought that Cam Sutton was going to be better than he was last year. We had no way of knowing that Emmanuel Mosley would play one play or, 2 plays and blow out his other ACL. No, so it's really apples and oranges. You can't really make a solid concrete thing. But appreciate the comment, Lloyd. What else you got, Russ?
I mean, that last comment right there, it's like we have to make the prediction. What's not fair is for us to not think it's going to be better. Like, I think, in my opinion, all 5 cornerbacks that we added to the room this year are better than the best cornerback that was on the team last year, and Cameron Sutton. All 5 of those guys. I think Amik's better. I think that both of the rookies are better than Cameron Sutton. I think Carlton Davis is better.
We do have a couple of undrafted free agents, one out of Wake Forest, one out of NC State, I think. Bullard. So a couple of these guys might be diamonds in the rough too that help the secondary, safeties and corners.
And it's like, this is the most drastic upgrade here. This is the part that's going to be unrecognizable, guys.
It's an overhaul.
It's like when you look at, like, let's just take Green Bay, for example, right? They're excited about Josh Jacobs. Yeah, we got Aaron Jones out. But how much of an upgrade is that, right? Like, you brought talent out, talent in. But when you talk about talent out, like, nobody that was on the Lions secondary last year, I mean, the teams aren't beating the doors down right now going, hey, we need Jerry Jacobs. Can we sign a 2-year, $19 million deal? None of those guys are getting signed.
Right. And hopefully Kendall Vildor will never see the field. Hopefully we have enough depth that he won't have to go out there.
Yeah.
So
the
we got
starting corner in our NFC championship game may not make this roster. That's how much of an overhaul it was.
Absolutely. One more room to grade here on the main event on the May 27th Memorial Day episode. I hope that all of you are having a great Memorial Day weekend. Let's not forget the real reason Memorial Day. Over 1.3 million men and women have lost their lives in combat to preserve our freedoms. And we take a moment here to nod our cap, tip our cap, nod our head to those folks and say how much we appreciate it. Last room that we are rating is the special teams room. Such an emphasis placed on special teams by this regime, especially head coach Dan Campbell. They always talk about, anytime the reporters are asking him a question, he's always both sides of the ball. Anytime that's used, all 3 phases of the game is what he's always quick to correct someone, that there are 3 phases to this game: offense, defense, and special teams. Fortunately, when it comes to the punting, we have the best punter in the league in Jack Fox. He gets a 10 out of 11 for me. When it comes to field goal kicker, our kicker right now is Michael Badgley, who's money inside 40 yards. To me, if you're money inside 40 yards, that automatically gives you a 7. He's also clutch, and he was voted sexiest man in the NFL, so he gets an extra point for me. So I give Badgley an 8. And our coverage return teams are 2 of the best. Our coverage team and our return teams are 2 of the best that there are, with guys like Rodrigo, Jalen Reeves-Maben, Craig Reynolds, these guys, and now Sion Vaki, who's going to be a demon on special teams. I'm giving the coverage and return teams a solid 9 altogether. That brings this whole special teams room to a 9. I gave a 10 for the punter, an 8 for the kicker, and a 9 for the coverage team. So that brings my grade on the special teams room to a 9. This will be our last one of the day. What do you got, Russ?
Well, first of all, I'm using my Homer get out of jail free card right here. Jack Fox is a legend, dude. I mean, this guy is a master of putting that ball inside coffin corner and pinning people inside the 5 and 10 yard line. Like, there is nobody, but he'll do it from his own 20. He'll do it from the 40. He'll do it from his 10. He just changes the field position. He's an 11. He's been the best punter in the league for, I don't even know how long. And it is what it is right there. Now, when it comes, he's a weapon. And as far as FIP goes, our special teams coordinator, the dude's a whiz. I mean, these 4th down sneaks and all this other stuff right there, I got to give him a 10 just for that. Now, where the field goal, Badgley, I'm not going to go too crazy. I like your pick of a 7. I'm not going to go crazy. I think that people are way hard on Badgley just because Dan Campbell loves to go for it. And it's not Badgley's fault that they're not kicking the field goal, guys. It isn't because Badgley sucks. He's got a great kicking percentage from all the phases. He's been doing well. He's been developing well. He's going to be fine. Won't worry about Jake Bates or anything. We're going to have Badgley. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I give it 7 there. I give the whole room a 9.5, 10. Like somewhere in there.
Nice. I like it. I know a lot of talk about Jake Bates, but they also did sign an undrafted free agent, the kicker from the Wolverines, from the Michigan Wolverines, and they re-signed Badgley. I believe, like you just said, Badgley will be the field goal kicker when the season starts. If Jake Bates does come over, I know a lot of people that will be happy about it. But booting 70-yarders in practice and 60-yarders in the UFL is not the same either, guys. The pressure is so much bigger.
Am I allowed to report the bad news? Like everyone oh my God, he kicked a 70-yarder in practice. Oh my God, he kicked a 60-yarder. But you know what he did? He missed a chip shot in the game the other day. We don't need a kicker that's going to miss chip shots.
Right. Whoa. All right. Right on. So there it is, room by room. We've rated this team. We've already predicted, both of us have predicted 13 wins for this team this year, and now we've rated each room, and you can see why our homerism coming through, but that's okay. It's called the Main Event, MANE, because it's like a Lions man, because we look at things through the lens of a Lions fan, and we're so glad that you all have joined us today. Time to wrap it up. We will see you again next Monday. For the producer, Russell Wayne, I'm Main Event Mike, saying God bless each and every one of you. One pride.